The following podcast is sponsored by Structure Tech.
Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Ulrich, alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman. As always, your three-legged stool, coming to you from the Northland, talking all things houses, home inspections, and anything else that's rattling around in our heads. On today's episode, we're excited to have Travis McKenzie with us. Travis works for Aquarius Homes Services. They're a large home services company based here in the Twin Cities. They do heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, water treatment. I'm sure there's other services they offer. But I got turned on to Aquarius after listening to a podcast probably 18 months, maybe 2 years ago already. It was called Toolbox for the Trades. It's with Service Titan. And they were interviewing Rod Yoder, who was the director of national sales for Kinetico. And he shouted out about Aquarius and how they were just doing an amazing job in the Twin Cities market. And at that point, I knew I needed to learn more about this company because I've always wondered about Kinetico. I feel like Kinetico is this magical machine that sits in the basement of people's homes. It doesn't run on power and it treats water. And I want to find out more about it. And I'm hoping that homeowners, if they have one or are thinking about getting a water conditioner, could actually listen to this podcast and make a pretty informed, intelligent decision whether or not this is something they want to look at. So I hope you enjoy the conversation with Travis. We're going to get to know their company a little bit. This is our first conversation that we've had, and hopefully it's the first of many, because I think they add a tremendous amount of value to homeowners' lives by being able to keep all the equipment in their home running at tip-top shape. Enjoy. Well, welcome, Travis. I'm excited to have you here to be having this conversation. I've come to learn a little bit about Aquarius in my research in our conversations. I noted this in the intro. I got turned on to you guys probably 24 months ago. I heard a podcast from Toolbox for the Trades. Service Titan puts out a podcast, and they had the National Director of Sales, Rod Yoder, on, National Director of Sales for Kinetico, Rod Yoder, on, and he was talking about all things Kinetico, and I was just soaking up everything he was saying. And then at the end, he did this amazing shout out of Aquarius Home Services and just talked about how your company was just crushing it in this market. And I knew then that I needed to have a conversation with you guys at some point, because as home inspectors, we walk past water conditioning and treatment systems all the time, but we do not inspect them because they're outside of the guardrails that our industry puts up. Is that a fair way to say it, Ruben?
Pretty much. Yeah. They're not included in our standard of practice. It's not to say we never touch them, never do anything with them, but we're not required to do anything with them.
Right. I learned about Aquarius through Rod on the Service Titan podcast, and then I reached out to Aquarius and I got in contact with Travis. So Travis, can you take a minute and just talk a little bit about Aquarius and what you guys do and where you're located?
Yeah, absolutely. So Aquarius Home Services was Aquarius Water Conditioning originally, established in 1987 from Jeff Doherty. So we originally were established as a water treatment organization up until, past 5-7 years perhaps, and we've expanded into other trades. So we like to say that we were founded on water treatment, but truly we were founded on service. We just happened to have water treatment. It's been our vehicle to get us to where we are. Build a phenomenal customer base, allow us for some pretty healthy expansion, and again, allow us to get in other trades. So yeah, we just celebrated our 35-year anniversary this year.
Wow. Fantastic.
Your service business that just happens to do water treatment when you started, and now you happen to do all sorts of home service offerings. And Ruben, you talk about that a lot. You're an education company that just happens to do home inspections.
Exactly. Yep.
I love that. And that's something really that hadn't been realized originally is the owner of our company, Jeff, which is been a personal friend. I've been here for almost 14 years now. You know, that it was always, water treatment. And that was his trade. And as you know, as tradesmen get into the field and end up running a business as a tradesman does, soon realizing that, water treatment, like I said, was the vehicle, but anybody can sell water treatment. Anybody can sell heating, cooling. Anybody can do that. But the service portion and really meaning it and understanding what's really behind service and having an entire organization all rowing the same direction and offering that same service and being empowered to do so, that's something you don't get with a lot of companies. And I feel that that's been a very strong root to our organization in particular, which is one of the primary reasons why I'm here.
Yeah, amen. That's important. And when people welcome you into their home, you just certainly hope when you leave, they go, we're going to have them back, right?
Absolutely. 100%. We're in the getting in the home business.
Well, let's turn to water conditioning. And is that the correct way to say it? Does your machine, the Kinetico water system, is that a water treatment or a water conditioner?
Yes to everything. Water conditioning, absolutely.
Okay. If you live in the Twin Cities metro area and you're not in one of the two big cities that pulls their water from the river, you probably need some sort of system to treat the water in your house. There's not a high level of water quality in this area. So we all know it's bad, and we know there are some options out there to treat it. Now, Kinetico is unique, and Travis, I want you to explain why they're unique. But I mean, just at a high level, you can treat with salt or you cannot treat with salt, right?
But Bill, I want to pause on that, because I know Travis, he's being polite, but I bet he wants to jump in too when you're talking about Minneapolis and St. Paul not needing water treated. But we were just discussing amongst the company about this new program that St. Paul has to get rid of all the lead water lines that they have. So it's like, even if you don't have hard water, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have good water. So Travis, I want to make sure to open it up to you in that department too, just to talk about general water quality and safety. I just want to expand your answer a little before you go on. So with that, take it away. You got the next 30 minutes. We won't interrupt.
I'm going to have a really hard time filling that if you've met me for more than 25 seconds. So one of the things when we're customer facing, we really try to be careful about saying the words need. It's really a personal preference based on the education that we're able to give the customer. I get that may sound scripted, but it is the truth. We really try to not focus on need-based stuff and just educate that way. So if you're talking about, let's just say, city applications, okay? So a city application is you get your water from a municipal well or from the river, whatever, and they run it through a refining process, put it into a tower, I guess, if you will, and pressurize it, and it runs to your home. Having municipal water has been one of the greatest things in the history for mankind. They've added sanitization to the water to help make sure that we're not getting sick from things like cholera. It was a huge, I guess, pandemic or epidemic or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think even just before the 1800s. So they decided that we need to do mass treatment to our city water supplies that we're all sharing and add chemical such as chlorine to the water, which I'm sure everyone here is familiar with, which is fantastic. And chlorine has been one of the greatest things that the city supplies have done for water treatment ever. However, and I guess this would be the but, with good becomes another issue. You're always creating some other issue. So what happens is they add your chlorine to the city water to help make it safe from virus and bacteria, if that makes sense. The challenge with that is there's byproducts that can take place with the addition of chlorine, stuff called like trihalomethanes. These trihalomethanes are known to be, cancer causing. They're starting to find more research that it's causing these other issues. So with anything, there's always another thing that comes. So we are big advocates of saying, hey, let us come in, educate you as much as we possibly can to make an informed decision whether this is something important to you or not. So in a city water situation, it's how important are these things to you to be taken out of the water, because the city cannot do it. The city cannot do it. And you have a personal choice.
Are there health risks then to drinking just like city water without removing any of these impurities? Like what are potential consequences someone could have?
There are many. I'm going to be extremely careful to go down that rabbit hole in particular. I don't want to get into a potential fear thing, but yes, with anything, there can potentially be a health risk. We talked about lead. So I think, Ruben, you brought up lead earlier.
Yeah.
That was a huge issue in Michigan. What the aftermath of that had been, it's hard to say when people get sick from what. So the answer, Tessa, is yes, there are health concerns that can happen. And this is where it's the person's personal preference of how good of level of water treatment they want to get based on what we're able to show them.
What do you have in your house, Travis? Can I ask that?
I decided that water treatment just wasn't for me. I love my farm. I love my... So I've got a pretty extensive system in my house. I have got what's called pre-filtration to water softening, all the way to purification. So I have our pretty standard best of the best Luckily, I didn't need anything above and beyond that. Just I didn't have any other crazy issues, but I'm dealing with something called nitrates in my water. I'm on a farm. I live on a farm, and there are something called nitrates in my water that is a byproduct of pesticides and herbicides that they would spread on the farm. It ends up in your water supply, and those can create issues over time as well. So of course, for me and my family, I want to make sure that the nitrates are out of the water as well. I remove those through reverse osmosis.
Okay. And what else do you find in water? Okay, so there's chlorine that's used to make it safe to drink. There might be nitrates in there. There's that big long word that you said that I'll allow you to say. What else are we battling against?
Yeah, so I will start with this. I would say the most common reasons that customers call our company is generally the things they can see. So the things that they can see are like iron, or hard water. And hard water itself, for those people that may not be familiar with the term, it's literally just rocks like lime or calcium carbonate that have dissolved into the water supply and ended up in your home. So I would say 80+% of the reason people are calling us is because their appliances, fixtures, their toilets, their showers look really poor.
Yeah.
Because of the buildup, if that makes sense. And that kind of triggers the call. And from that point, we were able to go in and test for these things. And we test for iron, hard water. We test for nitrates, chlorine, something called tannins that are in people's water. I don't know if anyone here is a coffee drinker, tea drinker, maybe wine. If you drink wine.
All of the above.
Yeah. So when we deal with problem well water, we run into something called tannins a lot. And tannins is simply just decayed vegetation, and really common by wetlands. And as you know, from Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, it is a lot of wetlands. So these are the things a lot of people don't know when they call us, because they just see that initial issue. And then we're able to really unpack that a little bit further for people, show them a lot of really cool different things we can do with their water, which is really unexpected for people that are not in this industry. And we can touch on that a little bit more as we go, if you'd like.
How much does it cost to do the testing, Travis?
Yeah, so our company does the testing all for free.
Okay.
So we do the consultation for free, and that is what we advertise, and that's just a part of service we offer. And, from there, we're very upfront about what this appointment is. We're coming out for free to analyze what we can with you. And from there, if you determine there's things in there you want to fix, absolutely 100% would love to show you how to do it. And we do really cool demonstrations where we can literally show people how we transform their water from what it is to what it could be. So they get a real live experience before they even invest in us, which is really cool.
So they get little samples even, right? Do they get to taste the water and see the difference?
Yes, they do.
I bet that sells itself to a lot of people.
It's really cool. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You don't have to go in and be this big, pitchy, over the top person. You just show them all these cool things, and you just naturally get excited because it's stuff people don't know and they've never seen before. And it's just really cool to start to see when people, when you're in front of a homeowner or whatever, it's really cool when you can just see these moments that they start to get it, and you can just see it. And literally by the act of just showing them a difference, people feel inspired and motivated just by us showing and telling. It's pretty cool.
Now, I got a question to piggyback on that. We're a home inspection company. Most of what we do is real estate transaction driven. So we're out there with people have this very narrow window, and we get a lot of questions from home buyers about water quality, like, oh, the water smells funky, or there's these stains, or this, that, or the other. It looks funky. And a lot of the time we'll talk to people about having water tested or putting it in a filtration system. But can you guys go out there? I mean, will you get involved in any of that when it relates to a purchase? Like, let's say I'm buying a house, I'm concerned about it. Can I call you guys up and say, hey, I'm buying this house, I want you to test it, I want to see what I'm going to need to do? Can you get out there that quickly, or is that just something you don't want to touch?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whatever, how am I going to say this so it doesn't sound super tacky? Whatever we believe is going to be of the best service for the customer that we are going to ultimately be gaining, absolutely. We'll go above and beyond and do whatever we need to do to help them get whatever they need to get, whatever it is. Hope that answers your question, but that would be a solid yes, for sure. As long as we're dealing with the people that are directly involved with what they're ultimately going to be tasked to live with.
Okay. I got a follow up to that. We do testing on water occasionally. We don't do a whole lot of it. It's definitely not our bread and butter, but we'll go out to a house, we'll take samples, and we'll bring it into a lab, like Tri-County lab or something like that. And then they'll do the testing on it. We give our customer the results, and we charge enough to make it worth our drive time, but that's about it. We don't make any money doing this. Would you be able to provide good enough results that people could use it for a real estate transaction, like testing for nitrates and bacteria on a house that has a well?
That is a really, really great question. So the answer is probably more leaning towards no.
Okay.
So there's limited tests that we do within our ability that allow us to determine what equipment and what solutions are going to work for them.
Got it.
Now,
Okay.
there's another level that's called a certified lab test.
Yep.
And that would be more to what you're referring to.
Yeah.
So that would get maybe to the higher level of, arsenic, bacteria, things like that. We as an organization do not go that particular direction. Usually they'll call us when they know they have that level of a problem because they've had a certified test done, and we will come in and show them solutions on how to get it done. So I would say we're not really considered a water testing company. We are a fix-it business by installing and recommending water treatment, if that makes sense.
You really dial it in is what you do. It's like once the thumbs up or thumbs down has been established, you come in and see, okay, what level do you want to get to? Do you want, the base model or the LE model, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So with our baseline testing, that usually is enough to get us where we need to go, unless things, again, like I had said to Ruben before, are a little bit more extreme. Like a coliform bacteria probably is one of the more common things people have heard of, which is bacteria from fecal matter, which sounds super great. I mean, just the thought alone is pretty disgusting. However, it's extremely common in people's well water, especially if they're by farms or wetlands. You just can't avoid these types of things. Whatever has been in the ground for as long as the earth has existed, you have the potential of that ending up in your water supply, good, bad, or indifferent. It just is. And it's nobody's fault other than human beings living on the planet Earth.
And there's a lot of shallow wells around the countryside, especially when you get to the lake country. There's sand points that have been driven down 20, 25 feet, and they hit enough pressure and enough water to be useful for that cabin. I remember the first house we grew up in, my dad he was a witcher. So he'd go out and find that vein, and then he would have somebody come over and pound a sand point. And I was like,
didn't know that, Bill.
I didn't either.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. But
he said a witcher, not a witch.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it depends on the day. Let's be honest.
So he'd pull out the old divining rod and he'd find the water.
Yeah, and then he'd take his wedding ring and put it on a string and drop it in a glass of water, and it'd move back and forth, and however many times it clicked the side of the.
Where did he learn this from?
I don't know. There's just old timers around the countryside that have either you have the electrical energy in your body to do it or you don't. I don't know how it works, but
did you try it? Did he ever teach you?
No, my dad didn't spend a lot of time teaching me things. I was out on my own at a young age. So I'm kidding. Mel, we love you. We love you. So all right.
Fascinating.
So let's talk about this a little bit. In the countryside, you have private wells, you have private septic treatment systems, and they have to be a certain distance apart, but that doesn't always mean that people do a good job of maintaining them, and sometimes they get old, or it's next to a large livestock operator, whatever it could be. Do you see this fecal matter showing up often in country living situations?
Yeah, we hear of it often enough. Yeah,
Okay.
it will be a reason people will call us to tackle that, which there are a few different treatment methods to handle it. And it is fairly easy to handle. But yeah, we do run into it from time to time. But I will say the most common reason for calls is literally because of hard water, staining, buildup, things that are affecting their appliances and fixtures. That's really the nugget that gets us the phone calls, I guess I should say. And, people really are starting to understand that water treatment is really an insurance policy for their plumbing and their fixtures. It's an insurance policy. It keeps their things from breaking, damaging, clogging, plugging up. And you probably know for sure that the amount of plumbing and appliances and fixtures, the amount that people invest in that for their house is significant. So simply having a machine in their house that is, again, high quality, will last a long time, can be extremely efficient. It sounds like a sales pitch. Extremely efficient is a huge insurance policy to make sure that this stuff stays in good shape and really prevent from future issues that could be severe.
Okay, let's touch broadly on costs. I don't want to pin you down on it, and then move to the efficiency of the machine. What does that insurance policy cost on a yearly basis? If you had to ballpark it, an average unit in an average home using the Kinetico system, like what does it cost to operate that?
Yeah. So you're specifically talking about operation itself, not the investment in it up front.
Well, give it to me both ways. So, okay, so what's the yearly operation? And then perhaps we just amortize this out over the life cycle of this unit and we give two numbers.
Yeah. So again, when I use the word investment, I do mean investment, and that's really where we're putting our money into an insurance policy. And I'll go through a couple of the reasons why there has a payback on it, if that's fair. So yeah. I would just take a stab and say, boy, it's tough with the different ranges of water. The worse the water, the more potential maintenance that obviously is going to be required. Okay. So I'll just say if I were to throw out a average of maybe a couple $100 a year, which would be maybe changing some filters and filling up some salt from time to time on a standard operation, I think that would be probably fair. Okay. And that may be what I would say your recurring cost, I suppose.
The insurance policy.
Yeah, I would say that would probably be fair. For the insurance policy. As far as an investment for, water treatment professionally installed as a whole, I'll just go ahead and give you the ranges. We have been in many, many situations where people have invested upwards of $16,000, $17,000 in their home to treat their water. And initially that does seem significant. So when we come in and we literally show people the different avenues and paths they can take to fix their situation or enhance their situation, you would not believe that they tend to be our absolute top fans. It's pretty incredible. Now, to go more down towards the more economical end, we'll have people that would invest as low as like $1,500, could be as low as $300, depending on what we're doing, and really anything in between. And that seems like such a huge range, but that's true, which is why we have professionals that go in to diagnose, analyze, and have these discussions with our customers so they really understand what's out there, what they can and have the option to do with essentially their insurance policy, right?
Yeah. Well, Tessa, I was waiting for you to jump in and say, like just before Travis answered the question, I thought you were going to say it depends.
It depends. Yeah, I was waiting for that too. Yeah.
They're waiting a whole half hour to get that out.
But I will say this, I think 16 grand doesn't sound like a huge number. I thought you were going to say something maybe 2x that, because some of these situations can be pretty complicated. And if you're taking a machine, and if this machine lasts 15 years or even 20 years, that's not that big of a deal when you start looking at it. So I'm not shocked by that number. I think for a Cadillac version of something, 16 or 15 or wherever you're at there, it doesn't sound outrageous.
Yeah. And when you're getting up to that level of investment, there's usually, multiple issues that we're trying to solve. At this point in time in the story of water treatment and its development, there's really not a good way to just say, this is one size fits all. Whatever you have, I've got this one thing, and this is going to take care of everything. As of today, that doesn't necessarily exist. Not saying that someday that it will. I'm certain it will. I'm certain it'll get there. So that's really why it's extremely important for us to test the water, analyze the water, and actually know what the heck we're talking about. People that are going to invest and trust in a company like this, they better feel confident that we know what the heck we're doing. So there's a lot of different elements, and all these different elements may need to be treated with different solutions, I guess I should say, without getting overly complex. There's different media, there's different systems, there's different tools that will treat things differently. And a lot of these you don't want to combine because it could create issues for the customer and hence create issues for our company and just have a bad relationship. So
can we kind of get to the nuts and bolts of this machine? Like, why is it different? Let's start there. Compared to normal machine that's got a reservoir that you fill with salt.
So if I can,
you can do whatever you want, Travis. This is our forum. I
can tend to get way, way into the weeds here, and I'm going to really try not to do that. So how a water, is that okay if I just briefly explain like just a water softener? That's the more common thing people know. So water softeners are extremely cool, and they're not well understood, but they're really cool. So in a water softener, think of a water softener as a tank. It's a tube. Inside that tube, there's these tiny, tiny little beads called resin. These resin beads it's like a magnetic charge to them. Okay. So these magnetic beads have a negative charge to them. They're made that way. So this negative charge inside of any water softener, not just Kinetico, it's any water softener. This is just the miracle of water softening as a whole. It's really cool. So what happens is these beads are filled inside of this tube, with that of which is your water softening unit. What happens is as the water runs through the tube of beads, these beads literally pull the hard water element, calcium carbonate, calcium, hard water rock. It literally separates it from the water on contact. Really pretty cool. So if you just imagine a magnet and holding a magnet up over a bunch of paper clips or whatever, it's attracting all of those paper clips. Of course, I'm on a podcast. No one can see my hands.
Oh, well, it helps us though.
Yeah, I am a very handsy talker, so you're not going to get that from the podcast. All right, I digress. Anyway, so if you can just imagine that magnet picking up all those paper clips, that's what's happening inside that water conditioning unit, is it's separating out the hard water and I guess iron, which is rust as well. So what happens is eventually inside that water softener, you've got one tank, and inside that water softener, if all of those beads have collected as much hard water as they can, and I'm going to ask a question to you here. If all of those beads have collected as much hard water as they can and they're full, if you continue to use your water in the house, what do you think you'll get?
Hard water.
You got it. Spot on. Because
Yay. I was worried there.
I know you guys were sweating. Upper lips.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Getting nervous.
I was really nervous for you. So those beads cannot take on any more hard water. So then they have to clean themselves. When they go through the cleaning process, people are familiar with the term regeneration. Regeneration is simply just the water softener taking a bath. That's all it is. So now you have salt. And a lot of people don't understand why salt or potassium is used in a water softener. They think the salt is softening. That's the common perception. So what happens is when this water softener, when all the beads are completely full, they have to be cleaned. And what happens is the system automatically takes in a sodium chloride or salt dosage, and that sodium or salt acts like soap does for us. We clean ourselves. Well, hopefully most of us clean ourselves with soap, and your hands are dirty, and that soap acts just like salt does to a water softener. They clean themselves with salt. We clean ourselves with soap. It's the same principle. So now those beads are free of all of that hard water, bad, damaging element, and it's replaced with sodium. Okay. So sodium is a soft element. So this is where the term soft water, hard water has rocks. Soft water has soft element.
Okay.
So now
I did not know that. So I was thinking that salt got mixed in with the water you're drinking, but that's not the case. The salt stays in the tank and it's just used to flush out all of the hard elements from the beads.
Both. You are correct on both. So with water softening, yes, you will still get a little bit of sodium that comes into your house, which is why we'll call water softening, we'll call it working water, because it's the water that you're bathing in, you're washing with, you're doing dishes, you're doing all that stuff. It doesn't necessarily make the water better for consumption. That's a different process. So that would be one of our additional conversations that we have with our customers is we've got your working water fixed. So your appliances, your fixtures, this is your insurance policy for your home. The next phase would be like water purification or water filtering or refining, whatever you want to call it.
Or like reverse osmosis or something.
Reverse osmosis is extremely common. You hit it right on the head.
Let me pause on that one though, because while you're talking about drinking softened water, what is your thoughts on drinking softened water?
So my thoughts on drinking softened water, I would say that it would not be beneficial for human health, but it wouldn't really necessarily send you backwards either, not in the extremes. We do encourage people to go the direction of your reverse osmosis or water refining, just for the sake that a lot of people think that when they buy water softeners, the water will be healthy. It's going to make it healthy. It really doesn't, but it does make the home healthier. It doesn't necessarily mean it's consumption water. So we really want to be careful when we're talking about that, because
but it's not bad, right? Like it's not bad to drink softened water.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. There is nothing in there that is going to create a toxin, if you will, that'll cause health issues that way. Yeah.
All right. So help me with this one. This has just been something that bothers me to no end. Why is it that every home in Minnesota, when I say every, I mean most, if they've got a water softener, they've got an unsoftened line going to the kitchen? Yep. Why do we do that, Travis?
Yeah, that's a super awesome question. That is an awesome question. So we are adamant about fixing that when we put in our equipment. Oh, I'm
Love
gonna
you
give
guys.
I'm gonna give you the Travis answer here.
Oh, love you
Um,
guys. All right, come on.
If you ever have me back, you'll start to understand what that means more and more. So here's the situation. I would say first and foremost, it's the industry has had over the years an extreme reluctance to educate customers at the level that we believe we do. You know what? I'll just say it. It's taken the time with customers to really help explain why things are done the way they're done. So here's the situation: is there's a stigma that potentially plumbers or install water treatment installers have about making sure the customer doesn't drink soft water, making sure that it doesn't happen. Well, the problem is it's really the customer's choice if we educate them appropriately. Situation is they can drink soft water all they want. People do it all the time. It adds a little bit of sodium to the diet. Okay. So for people that don't want that little bit of added sodium, it's something they may want to steer clear of. But again, it's the customer's choice based on our education. So what has happened in the industry, and maybe people that aren't truly water treatment professionals, is they just make the decision for the customer and they leave part of their water untreated, which does not, in my opinion, really serve them as best as they should be served. This is almost like giving a customer an ultimatum and just making the decision for the customer. Instead of taking your time and actually educating them, talking about what water softening and water treatment does and doesn't do, and then letting the customer decide. Plus, this is another thing: is many companies fear their own price. Many companies fear their own price. So they're scared potentially to get into this conversation with customers and really educate them about why whole home water management is important, which requires levels of water treatment to get you where you should be. Instead, they just leave the kitchen faucet line untreated, which is not fixing their water. They're only getting 50% of the treatment, which means they're still going to get scale buildup at the kitchen sink, which is where everybody goes. It's where everybody sees. It's a lot of times the focal point of most people's homes.
Yes.
And they've had a complete and utter disservice done. And again, this is the Travis answer, emotionally driven perhaps, but it's to me an extreme disservice. The industry is just making that decision for the customer because they don't want to get into the education that we spend our time doing. And I just don't think it's fair to the consumer, in my opinion.
And let me just jump on that for a second. I mean, my last house was in Maple Grove and didn't have softened water going to the cold side. And my faucet would get destroyed about once a year. I've got Delta faucets and they got a lifetime warranty. And I'd have to call Delta once a year and have them send me out a new faucet because something just would stop working. Wow. And my coffee makers wouldn't last for more than a year. They'd get all calcified, even though I used vinegar and all that stuff. And I'd constantly have the white stuff all over my sink and around the faucet. It was just constantly nasty. And finally, I bypassed the bypass and I put softened water to my kitchen faucet, and all of these problems went away overnight. And it was the first thing I did at the house that I live in now, and zero problems whatsoever. I absolutely love it. So I think it's just a disservice to let people destroy their faucets and their coffee makers and everything else. So, okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're spot on. It's exciting for me. Again, like I said earlier, when people get it, it's really cool to see. It's just really cool to see, because not to be dramatic about this, but you got to think about the effect that water has in the home and how often we use it and how much it touches. Yet there's a massive amount of people that just don't pay attention to it, either because they don't know enough or they think that other people take care of it. They think the city takes care of it for me. Yeah, to a point, but you need to do your due diligence to understand the full effect.
It's a little bit like code in building. You get the lowest common denominator of a building if you follow code. If you just use the water that the city provides, it's like the lowest common denominator water. And it probably isn't going to hurt you, but it's probably not going to do you any favors left alone for a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really cool, I totally stole this, and we're probably going to run out of time here, but I totally stole this. Think of city water like a steak, or think of water as though you're going to eat a steak. The city does a really good job putting the wrapper on that steak, which they'll do chlorine or chloramines. Chloramines, by the way, on city water is chlorine mixed with ammonia, and they mix these together and they send it into the home. Whether you want to live with that in your house or not, totally up to you, but we encourage removal of it. So the point is, think of water as the steak, the wrapper as chlorine or chloramines. It protects the product, okay? that wrapper protects the product. So imagine that you're going into a grocery store and you're buying the steak, or your butcher shop, you're buying the steak and it's wrapped and you bring it home. You want the product, that of which is the steak. So you leave the wrapper on, fire up your grill, throw that steak with the wrapper on, right on the grill. You cook it all together. That wrapper melts around that steak and everyone's like, no, but it's good. It's good. You want the wrapper. Yeah, you did, but you want the product. So you need to unpack that steak, if that makes sense. So this is what I envision water treatment, again, based on what I stole from brilliant conversation someone had with me, was with water treatment, you want to unwrap that wrapper because the product you want is the water. And that can be considered with city water or well water, but it just happens to relate to chlorine. Chlorine serves a purpose. It's amazing. It's great. And no one should ever say that it's bad. And if you ever hear that in a house that someone's bashing it, it's not correct. It's great until it reaches your house. Now you want to unwrap that steak and you want that product. That's your responsibility. That's what
that's a good segue. So how does the Kinetico system unwrap the steak?
Yeah, so I totally went down a rabbit hole. So I started with the beads, didn't I? And then we went in a whole different direction. Told you that was going to happen.
That's okay.
All right. So it started with the beads. So the basic principle of water softening is that salt cleans the beads are regenerated, and now it can treat your water again until it needs to clean itself. So what Kinetico has done, Kinetico came into the industry in 1970, and it was designed by two engineers, oddly enough, of course. So what happened is they realized that with basic water softening technology, they were still having problems with hard water buildup. There was still signs that the system could not keep up with the average household water use. And as we've continued to, move forward as a society, our water usage has just gotten to be more and more and more and more and more. So the conventional water softener method, which we call them single tank electrics, which are the most common water softeners that you can get from almost anywhere, including us. We carry the basic as well as Kinetico. Okay. So they realize that the conventional technology is not prepared to handle your erratic water usage in the home. So what Kinetico has done is they've essentially connected two water softener tanks together. Then they've coupled that with a non-electric head. So Kineticos right now that we know of are the only non-electric operational unit in the industry. And again, we've been doing it for an amazingly long amount of time, and we've got it pretty much perfected. So what happens is when one water softener tank cannot treat your water, let's just say you're doing a load of laundry and you're going to hop in a bath or shower or whatever, and all of a sudden your water softener is now like, I'm full. I cannot treat the water anymore. All my beads are full. Well, I asked you earlier, what happens when your water softener is full? You keep using water and you're going to get hard water, which is what you're trying to not have. So what happens is when one Kinetico tank cannot treat the water anymore on demand while you're using your water in your house, that one tank is now going to automatically go into self-cleaning mode. It's going to automatically kick in right now while your washer is going, while you're doing a shower, and while whatever. While that tank is cleaning itself, the alternate tank is now continuously treating your water without interruption. And that cycle happens back and forth, back and forth. So Kinetico's, one of their big claim to fame is you are money back guaranteed water quality, because we will not run out of softened or conditioned water. You will not run it out.
Even with 5 teenagers?
Even with 5, even with 8, whatever that is, 2-hour-long showers.
Wow.
It's totally fine for our equipment, which is really cool that we were able to actually offer. We're the only one in the industry that offers a 100% money back performance guarantee, largely because of that. That's one of the big things.
That principle kind of reminds me of why some people might choose to put in an on-demand water heater in their house instead of using a tank water heater where they've got lots of people showering all at one time, or 3 kids back to back to back, whatever. They run out of hot water, so they put in a tankless water heater, an on-demand one, and they never have to worry about running out.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said. Totally agree. So this would give you, just like a tankless demand initiated water heater, this unit, Kinetico brand, gets you unlimited treated water, which honestly speaking, isn't that what you think you're paying for?
Yeah. Unless you're educated, you would just assume, right?
Right. That's part of our process, is helping educate on what's standard in the industry and what's not. And because of that, Kineticos will tend to be a little bit more of a higher investment than your standard technology, just by nature, because it's doing more. And people understand that, and they're like, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. And again, this is why we put in 6,000 plus units a year across Minnesota and Wisconsin. People love them. It's huge. So with that being said, that alternate technology allows us to have consistent treated water no matter what. I said we couple it with a non-electric head. The great part about non-electric head is it's consistent. So you don't get timers, you don't have microprocessors, you don't have overseas microchips that you can't get. We're all maybe familiar with that with our vehicles right now, but there's no overseas microchips. 100% of our product is American built, American made. Every piece, every part is right here in the US, which is really cool too, in my opinion anyway. And you don't have to deal with any programming. You don't have to do anything. So the system is set. We set it to the water quality we test, and it just treats your water on demand as you would expect it to do. So if your power ever goes out, you don't have to go and mess around with your water softener after you've went ahead and reset all your clocks in your house and your microwave and all that stuff. This is just consistent standard. The other really cool part about Kineticos is their longevity. They are known to be one of, if not the longest lasting water treatment unit, that is made right now, largely because the system itself cleans itself with its own clean water bath. So the product water that you're trying to get in your house with soft water is what it uses to clean itself off with. Standard technology, it uses the same hard contaminated water to clean itself. So it's like you cleaning yourself with hard water. When you clean yourself with hard water, you have to use more soap. You have to use more products. You have to use lotion, all of that stuff. So that's where a drawback to conventional technology is they're always contaminating themselves with the same water you're trying to not have, which limits the life. It builds up, that crust inside the head, inside the unit, and they just generally don't tend to last as long and require a little bit more maintenance.
So what's the average lifespan, Travis, of a system like that just uses hard water to clean itself versus like a Kinetico?
Yeah, it's going to vary from water supply and from state to state. Obviously, it depends. I really wish I was quick-witted enough to have gotten that earlier. Let's just say Maple Grove. I think, Ruben, are you live in Maple Grove?
Yep.
So Maple Grove, if you are talking about standard technology, standard usage, Maple Grove tends to have pretty hard water. It's around 20 to 30 grains, which is pretty severe. Anything over 10 is considered extreme.
Okay.
Maple Grove tends to be in the 20s to 30s. When you kind of get more of the West Metro, it gets a little worse. So average life we tend to see can be anywhere from 3 years to 8 years on conventional technology before they may start requiring some more maintenance.
Wow.
How generally what happens is people don't necessarily recognize it until the unit just dies completely. What people aren't realizing, it's been dying a slow death. This is very morbid. This is supposed to be really happy. But they start going out as you continue to use it. It goes out and it starts to die a slow death, and then you really don't realize it till it's gone. Now,
I'm sure people get really salty not knowing that it's doing a slow death. Huh?
Was that a
Which
pun?
is more obvious.
Yeah. Tessa.
Yeah. Well, I think we're done here.
Sorry.
We better wrap.
Yeah.
I know.
I think that did it. You will generally find Kineticos will generally be in that 15. We've had units out there for up to 40 years.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. Again, little bit more of an investment, but the longevity and consistency you get with it is absolutely phenomenal.
There's a big difference between 3 and 40 years, crazy.
On the two extremes, yes.
Yeah.
Takeaway from this conversation is Kinetico will clean itself in its own clean water.
Correct.
It does not use salt, or does it use salt?
It uses salt. We just use the claim to fame for Kinetico is we use the least amount of salt in the industry, and we're the most efficient, partially for the reason that we do clean ourselves. Kinetico cleans itself with its own clean water. There are some other elements to it that make that more efficient, but that's a big one.
What does that mean in terms of the environment? I've never considered how much salt gets dumped into the environment because of treatment. Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is. And the industry has been more and more aware of it now. There are really 3 big main factors that are leading to, we would say, chloride contaminant. When you talk about salt, it's sodium chloride. Chloride is really seemingly becoming the topic of issue. And they say there are 3 main contributing factors. Number 1 factor is road salt. The amount of rolled salt that is distributed on our roadways, and obviously the northern hemisphere here, is phenomenal. So that'd be issue number 1. 2 and 3 would be water conditioning, water treatment, water softening, and then, farm, like they spray chemicals that contain chlorides for keeping dust down on roads, possibly, stuff on farms. So there are three main contributing factors to that they have found. And yeah, they're trying to take measures to make people more aware of, reducing your salt usage. For sure. You can't get away from it when we're talking the water treatment industry as a whole right now. The technology just isn't there to eliminate salt and still have the benefit that people are looking for, which is lower cleaning products, less soap. All of these things are contaminants in their own way themselves. So water treatment helps combat them. But then if we could get a system in that reduces the amount of chemicals and cleaning products and plastic that you use in your home, and you can have as little salt usage as possible, Kinetico has gotten really good grades on top system for that solution. Unfortunately, today, getting rid of salt for water conditioning just isn't feasible yet.
Interesting. Okay. Very good. Now, you treat this water and you send this water that went through the Kinetico conditioning system to the kitchen tap. Is it good to drink?
So are you saying if you're just doing the water softening?
Yeah. I mean, are you cleaning it up enough that you're going to, right? Like, is this the best water I can use for my coffee?
Yeah, generally no. So earlier I had separated two terms, and one term would be working water. Mm-hmm. The other term would be simply drinking water. Surprise, surprise. So working water, Bill, to your point, would be really, really good for everything other than what I would say drinking. Not that it's going to harm you. It just doesn't get you that drinking water quality that you would expect because there is a little sodium in the water yet. And it doesn't necessarily make the water, we're not out claiming that this is just going to make the water taste any, better. It's going to remove those damaging elements for all of your plumbing and fixtures. It's the insurance policy for the home.
Okay, very good.
Then the next piece of water treatment generally would be sanitization. If you're on a private well or some cities, sanitization can be done by UV, really common. And UV really just helps control bacteria. Bacteria it's an invader that can happen at any point in time on any water supply. Have you ever heard of boil watery advisories?
Mm-hmm.
City water? Well, that's why they do that, because they have either detected bacteria in the water or there had been a break in a main where there could be potential bacteria. So anyway, you're going to have your working water, then you're going to have consideration if you want to sanitize your water for your home. And then last would be refining, which would be like purification. Reverse osmosis would be consideration. And what that would really do is refine the water down to remove salts, metals, and really any inorganics from your water that are left over. And that would get you the water you're talking about, which would be great for coffee, tea. For the whiskey drinkers, if they want to add a little water, that's a great tool for that. Yeah, so that would be your consumption water after softening. So it's a refining process if you can kind of vision that.
And just visually speaking, you have to have the process for going from working water to the clean water. And then when you go, you need another system to process the third level, the highest level package.
Yeah, that is generally encouraged. There are people that have a more moderate level of water hardness that they can put in reverse osmosis without water softening. There is that, but for us, knowing what we know, we do encourage what we call whole home water management, which is a step process.
It's 3 layers to get to that final product.
Yeah, which again can be up to 5 layers depending on what kind of things people have in their water. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Circling back to this salt in the environment post water treatment, does a standard electric tank system just dump more in than a Kinetico system because it's washing periodically, or is that not really a thing?
I guess if we talk in terms of efficiencies, there's a couple things. Is number one, making sure that the standard conventional system is actually set right, which if I were to guess a percentage, I would say 50 to 60% of the time, they're not even set appropriately for what they're trying to do. So what'll happen is a lot of times regenerating or cleaning themselves more than they have to. So by nature, because they're not set appropriately, because they got thrown out of whack somewhere along the line due to a power outage or a customer messing around with it because it's not working right, whatever. It by nature could be going off a lot more often than it needs to and causing excessive salt to go into our environment. Absolutely. So that would be one thing. The other thing too is, if they feel their water conditioner maybe isn't working all that well, maybe it's not going off, maybe it's not regenerating enough. So they're like, oh, I don't use that much salt. But the output is they're having hard water issues in the house and having to use more soap. more cleaning detergents, more CLR, more chemicals. So they're really combating and being defensive with their problem. So it's just trying to find that balance. And that's where we really have found, as well as other people that have endorsed our products have found, that Kinetico really has that, as of today, has that perfect balance of efficiency and consistency and longevity. It has that all in one package, which is really cool.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, Ruben, Tessa, you've seen enough of this firsthand, but the average homeowner is not prepared to be adjusting their water softener, their water conditioning system and getting it right.
I'm not, and I'm a home inspector. I mean, I learned a lot from listening to this podcast today.
Yeah, and we forget. Life is busy, and if you're always having to remember to do and monitor and all of this stuff, boy, you're going to fall down at some point in time. So a set it and forget it type of unit, it feels like it's appropriate for the pace of life in 2022.
I love that. I'm going to steal that from you.
Okay, well, you're welcome to it.
Before you claim royalties, I got it.
I have no royalties to anything. Listen, I think we should maybe begin to put a close on this conversation. It feels like the beginning, because I want to know about all these other layers you can stack on and how you get to that beautiful water where you could use this water to distill whiskey if you wanted to, right? Like, there's so little I know about water. It's just, to me, water treatment is magical, just like air conditioning is magical. It's this process that happens, and some really smart people have set it up, and I'm the beneficiary of them, right? And so, but I'm a curious sort, and I like to kind of understand the why behind it. Tessa and Ruben, they're smart. They get this at the molecular level. I simply don't.
Not at all. I failed the chemistry, Bill.
Travis, can you tell everybody the service area you cover and how to get a hold of you? Because I think everybody would be well served to just have a consultation and see what's coming out of their tap. Even if you think your system's dialed in, let's see if it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the service area that Aquarius Homes Services covers is pretty extensive and growing. I would say most all of Wisconsin. I guess we'll just keep it extremely vague. I won't be able to break down city by city. And I would say Minnesota, I guess not exact here, but if you take Highway 94, we're primarily north of Highway 94 and cover most of Minnesota north of 94 for the most part. But we do bleed into areas, south of that a little bit, obviously. But yeah, if you just go all the way from, if you're familiar with like Wilmer, Minnesota, Alexandria, Minnesota, Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, all the way up to Green Bay, Wisconsin, we would definitely be your people.
Okay. So you can treat water here at your home, and you could also treat it at the cabin. It would be incredibly consistent, and you never be wondering how much metal is on that anode rod, corroding away inside your water.
Yeah, there's a whole nother subject you could get into. There's odor and anode rod and water heaters and the effect water has on that. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. You offered to get a hold of us. Best way is aquariushs.com would by far be the best way to get a hold of us.
Outstanding. So if you need water treatment, if you need HVAC, plumbing, electrical, are all those services available to that area you talked about?
Yeah, and growing. So as we've been expanding, water treatment has been the primary expansion, and we are adding all of these other services as we go. So there are certain pockets right now that may not carry like heating and cooling specifically, but our big mission by the end of this year is to have all services in all of our markets, which is it's a feat within itself to get that.
No kidding. It's growth it's a challenge all of its own. Ruben, you know all too well.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention at the end of this, I talked earlier, Rod Yoder, the national sales director of Kinetico. I heard him on this podcast. And Travis, I just want to give you a moment because Rod's no longer with us. And we went through a very similar event with the original owner of Structure Tech too. So let's give him, the proper recognition.
Yeah, Rod had been with Kinetico for a long time. And if there were any individual that you would ever meet that could make you smile and make you just feel like you could open up and be a friend and talk to and laugh with, I'll tell you, there's very few people in my life I've ever met that you can just get that immediate connection with. And I think that's probably something that I've been able to take away from him and try to keep myself balanced in that. Extremely caring person, extremely intelligent. Yeah, just an all around fantastic guy that touched a lot of people. And when, when Kinetico had lost him, it was and is still a pretty big blow. So yeah, I think, he's been missed for sure.
Well, palms to the sky for Rod. I mean, we have our own story with Rick here. Both of them are gone too soon because of a terrible pandemic. And you know what? Every day is a gift. That's all I'll say.
Amen.
So Travis, thank you for the time. This went longer than we normally go, but this is outstanding information. And you guys you feel like you're structure tech to the core. I know you're not, but your heart is in education. Ruben's heart is in education. I just think what you do for the community is important. And I want to thank you for your time today. I hope this is the beginning of many conversations, and really appreciate you joining us today.
Bill, Ruben, Tessa, great to meet you guys. Like I said, hopefully this won't be the last either.
I've got a lot more questions for you, Travis.
Yeah, we'll have to have a part 2. Hope you come on.
Any of my coworkers that hear you say this went longer than most, they're going to say, was Travis on the podcast? Everything I'm involved with goes long. So this would be the norm.
Well, thank you again. Everybody, you've been listening to Structure Talk, a Structure Tech presentation. My name is Bill Oldrick alongside Tessa Murray and Ruben Saltzman. Thanks for listening. We will catch you next time.
For more information on how we can provide you with the right information about your home before you buy or sell, contact us at structuretech.com.